via, sorry, I'm a little disoriented today. Yeah, find it in the middle of the page and sign up and join in. We got Marcus, Fake War, Dry Fly Guy, the mechanic just was on another show. I don't know what program that was. It used to be Deacons, but I don't know if he was on. Maybe he was. I think he was. Anyway, yeah, Tootsie, Mona. Hi, Mona. How are you? Rudolph, Boy Solomon, Blasphemous Buddha, Stardust Man. How you doing, Stardust Man? Comet, SJ, Saul Rosenberg. I don't know if he's there. Sometimes he is. Sometimes he's not. Popsicle Toes. How you doing? Big D. And Pat Rabbit's there. Hi, Pat. Haven't talked to you in a while. I've been busy doing this and that. Jer Bear, how are you doing? You just kind of popped up. I guess you've been there for a while. Hope everyone's just doing well and doing great. I know this pandemic has been a big problem for a lot of people. Like I said, it's all been planned, and it's really bad that people have to put up with this. It really is. It's very disgusting, and I don't know what to say. Yeah, my friend Nathan just got back, I guess. Let me see if we can get him on here. Let's see. I don't know how to unmute him. You have to unmute yourself, Nathan. I don't know if you can hear. Probably not. He did. Okay.
There now.
Hey, Nathan, how you doing?
Not too bad. How about yourself, LB?
There, that's better. Your mic's a little muted.
How about now? Is it better?
Yeah, it's a little better.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been a little disorientated. I don't know. Told him we're going to talk about municipal on Marxism today and how it is, put through the system as it's established. I don't know. Oregon's been seeing a lot of problems with attacks by, they call them protesters, but they're actually rioting, and some people call them insurgents. But my question is, how do you have an insurgency on top of an insurgency,
Right.
They're pretending that this insurgency under the 14th Amendment hasn't happened, as the government goes.
Well, it's order out of chaos at its finest.
Yep.
I mean,
So anyway, yeah, how's your day going? Did you get that project going?
Yeah, I did.
Did you? Wow, I'm impressed.
Yep.
It's always good to find some work in this day and age, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you got a skill and a trade, you can pretty much take it anywhere.
Yep. That's what it takes for a lot of these people that don't understand what's really going on. And, I've always been not self-employed, but I've worked for myself for many years. I guess I used to be self-employed before I got out of the system 25 years ago, but now I just, do my own thing, kind of like you're doing.
I think more people would be more keen to doing the free enterprise avenue, but people are tied up with their jobs and their labor that is going out for perpetual Marxism, and they can't get away from it. They don't have time to do the learnings and thinkings and things.
I think you're right. That's why I started People's Awareness Coalition 20 years ago, hopefully that people got together and started working together. But there's been a lot of operatives out there and opportunists that just divided things up. And there's a few groups out there that are doing things incorrectly, because I know, like that fake Judge Anna, for example, she's an operative, and she's misteaching people. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But there's been others that have just messed things up. But like I said, they haven't had this system going for the last 150 years as it is without operatives out there and disinformation agents, of course, that go along with that. You've run into a few over the years, haven't you, before you ran into what we were doing?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. I mean, they all sound good. That's the thing. It sounds like ear candy is what it is. And people like ear candy, whether it's music, whether it's law, whether it's whatever. Just people can't get beyond the ear candy aspect and actually look at the law to see what the law actually states compared to what people's opinions are.
Right. I listened to someone that my friend John, not John Breeson, but the other John I know that you know, sent me something this afternoon to look at. And it's a woman that's going over Revelation and kind of compares it to what's going on. She thinks there's going to be a jubilee. I really don't think that's going to happen myself. I can't see that it's going to happen.
Well,
Do you think that's going to happen? I mean, all debts forgiven?
Maybe, but it's going to be under a satanic forgiveness.
Yeah, she kind of said that. I don't know if I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see why they would do that unless they want to suck people in deeper.
Well, that's your socialism.
Well, of course it is, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
You know, I think she's kind of right, because I think that's how the New World Order is going to get favor of the general population, of the masses, how they fall into favor with them. So when it talks about in Revelations that the so-called Antichrist will be worshipped by most of the world, I guess that would be a good way of getting them to worship him.
Yes.
Forgive the debt.
There are a lot of people that have interpreted or put their spin or whatever they believe on Revelations over the years. I haven't taken a deep look at it because so many other people have. But I don't know. I just know that they said that God doesn't want you lukewarm. It's either hot or cold. And of course, that could be interpreted different ways.
Yes, you are correct on that. It can definitely be interpreted.
But the thing that would upset me is a bunch of people are getting free money now, you know, with this Trump bucks that they put out. So
one of the correlations that I've thought of over the years, and I think you're the one who said it, about Karl Marx saying that the world will have peace when the world is finally socialized.
Right.
I believe that's the false peace that the Bible speaks of.
Of course it is.
So if that's the case, and we look at socialism the way we look at socialism and how they buy people's votes and buy people's kids and buy people's whatever through the act of socialism, I guess why couldn't they forgive the debt?
Yeah, I suppose, but that was originally the Israelites' covenant with God, you know, debt forgiveness, or, you know, whatever, every 7 years, was it?
Might be. I don't.
Deuteronomy. Yeah.
I got to get into Deuteronomy. You keep referencing Deuteronomy, and I really not read it.
You haven't looked at it? Wow.
Since 15.
I thought I was bad at studying the Old Testament, or that would be considered the Torah.
Right. But the first 5 books, right?
First 5 books, correct.
And then the first 5 books got manipulated and turned into the Talmud, correct?
Yeah, the so-called Jews have created something called Judaism. Some of them piggyback off the Torah, but really it's a totally different religion. There's different sects within that religion, so it's just a mess. They're anything but the Israelites. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't understand, that the Israelites are not the same as these so-called people that practice Judaism or the Zionist. So it's a total different atmosphere. So, you know, basically they've lifted what the Israelites' religion was, or covenant, and they've used it for devious purposes. Or used it in an adverse way, I guess you would say. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was condemning the Zionists a few weeks ago, and someone was condemning me for my attacks on the Israelites.
Oh, and really?
I'm like, well, that just shows that the willful ignorance is just so prevalent with people right now.
Was this social media?
It was just the news. I think Yahoo News.
Mm-hmm.
and I like to comment on certain things and interject when I get an opportunity to.
Right.
And well, I just can't believe that someone called me an anti-Semite when the Zionists are behind everything that's going on. I mean,
Well, that's part of the deception I'm talking about. Or was
right, but
mentioning.
Yahusha, which is Jesus for everyone that doesn't know that, um, he spoke out against the Zionist and the Cabal and all the different religions that are going on that are spun off Judaism and the Jews. He was the first anti-Semite. I mean,
Yeah.
why else did he get crucified?
Yeah. Well, you have to understand that Zionism technically wasn't started until the late 1800s. But
Yes.
that faction has been around for a long time.
Well, I still believe the same families that were the Pharisees at the time are still running Israel
Yes.
in the world right now to this very day.
Yes. My point is that there's an actual point in the 1800s where they started Zionism. I forget the gentleman's name who started it. I think it was 1897. Maybe someone in the chat room knows that particular fact. But I look at Zionism as a political move by the Synagogue of Satan to include the non-Jews. That's why I describe it. Because you'll see a lot of people that are non-Jews. Biden, for one of them, he's running for president right now, or down the Democratic ticket anyway. He admits to be a Zionist, and of course he's not Jewish.
Well, maybe Trump and Biden could put on their little hats and go to the Wailing Wall.
Well, I've seen Trump there in a
Right.
photo. I didn't personally see him there, but
Right.
it's all the same group of people,
Yep.
all the same political party. Marxism. Anyway, yeah, I put a paper together a while back called The Establishment. I don't know if you've read that one. Probably have at one time or another.
More than likely.
Yeah, I think I gave it to you about a month or two ago. And it starts off the insurgency rebellion. And that's what I said about, these people that are being called insurgents right now, going after, like out in Oregon, it's been pretty bad. They're attacking one of the federal buildings. And I guess Department of Homeland Security went in there and secured some of it a couple days ago, but they're back at it. And supposedly they breached the building, according to some people's reports. So, they're calling them insurgents and anything but protesters. But the media seems to be wanting to call them protesters, which, when you do violence, it's not protesting. So I don't see how they're getting away with that. But that's how the deception works throughout the mainstream media.
It would be one thing if the protesters were actually protesting something worthwhile. I mean, what they should be protesting is the insurgency of the government.
That's what I get upset about. I was telling people before you came on today about, I started People's Awareness Coalition to fix this thing 20 years ago. And it seems people aren't willing to give up their socialism or Marxism to get it done, And now, like you're referencing, or we referenced, that they're going to give more stuff away to suck people into deeper slavery. And I don't see things getting better myself. Of course, like you said, it might look better, but it's not going to be.
No, it's the mirage. It's the smokescreen.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I really don't believe that they were ready to unleash the whole COVID-19 thing. I think it was something that was a little bit preeminent, but they had to because I think they were losing control of the general populace. I really believe that. Yeah. I believe the stock market is something that's hanging on a balance, a very, very fine balance right now. And the only reason why it hasn't failed is because they've been dumping in piles and piles of money, of stimulus money. So who's really benefiting from it? It seems like it's just like capitalism, like you say, it's the consolidation of wealth. And I believe they're consolidating the wealth more so than they ever have before.
Yeah, it seems, well, I've said since this COVID thing started that they're trying to put the middle man, or not the middle man, but the middle class out of business, close down a lot of these smaller businesses, or the businesses that were on the edge, basically maybe just ready to go out of business in the first place, without the COVID problem. But we see that happening. I mean, there's a lot of small businesses in big trouble right now, are going under. And I don't think they're going to recover. And as I've said in my book and my writings, and I've said openly that this so-called communism is just a wealth consolidation program. And of course, they couldn't get it done with communism directly, especially in the United States. But the United States is the boilerplate for the world, world communism. As you can see, this industrial revolution has gone worldwide, and the corporatism that you see is all based on so-called capitalism. So, that is the new world order, and it's consolidating in itself. There's small businesses that have been eaten up by bigger businesses, and eventually just one faction is going to own everything. Now, I don't see that changing at all.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get much worse.
Yeah.
And I want to just elaborate on that, just for something that's a personal experience of mine. I have a friend that stocks liquor at a bar, and there's certain liquor that they can't get no more right now. And he was told
Yeah,
2 months ago. He was told 2 months ago when the bars opened back up, that here in Ohio, that when the beer distribution guy came, and they're like, well, this beer's out of date, this beer's out of date. And the beer distribution guy said, you better hang on to that, because there's not going to be much beer come August. And I didn't really give it much credence, I guess you could say. And now all of a sudden it's happening. I'm looking around and I'm seeing less and less beer being stocked at the local gas stations. And now that I talked to my buddy with the liquor problem, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, no one's going to know what to do. I mean, this is a planned takeover, LB.
Yeah.
They're going to do anything they possibly can to create chaos.
Well, it's going to be a new normal. It took me to about 10 years ago. I realized that I didn't have a people, I looked at communism through my book and whatever as, yeah, they did all this, created this commercial plantation, but I didn't realize how lost people were and into the system until about 10 years ago. And, everyone's head's in Marxism. Mine's not, hasn't been, as you know. You talked to me for the last, 4 years now? 5 years, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, about 10 years ago, I realized I didn't have a people. Everyone's into their Marxism.
What was
Yeah, so my point to what you're saying is they've created a system where they're human resources and consumers. That's their purpose, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I knew this, but I didn't realize how bad it was. So what's going on now is they're just elevating or going to the next project or their people's purpose.
I mean, I mean, people might not like what I'm about to say, but Adolf Hitler made the quote years ago that give me control of the textbooks and I will control the state. I mean,
yeah. Well, they've been doing that for years.
Right. And then when you actually take into effect what is known as, I mean, there's declassified information from our government called Operation Paperclip, which is the indoctrination of Nazism into America with the politics and the scientists that they placed all throughout America after World War II happened. So if people want to look up Operation Paperclip and let your head spin for a while, go right ahead, because it's out there.
Yes, I've heard a lot of that. I haven't researched that part of that myself, but I know a lot of the so-called Nazis came over to the United States after they broke all that up. But you know, this similar stuff's going on here right now, and people don't see it.
But
how
did Germany lose control? The people lose control of Germany. It was through socialism.
Of course, that's what Hitler was all about, Nationalist Socialist Party.
Right. I mean, and you look at what's going on right now. I mean, how can anybody say it's something different than that? I mean, what's that old saying? Tragedy is first done as far as
what Marx said. It's
first is farce,
history happens. First is tragedy, second is farce.
Right, and nothing could be more true than what we're encompassing right now, based upon the World War II, which was tragedy first off, and now the next time it's happening as farce. It's the same thing.
No, I'm sure they've done it in other governments, but yeah, World War II was one of the major things that overcame built the New World Order. Like I tell people, I don't look at the details of what happened during World War II, but I look at the outcome, and the two things that happened were the United Nations was formed, which is pursuant to a world government, and two, fake Israel was instituted. So those are the two things that are the problem.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
you know, when you bring up that, I also have to just sit back and look at a wide angle lens on this and think about when Trump first came into office, and one of the first things he proclaimed and wanted to do was annex Jerusalem and the West Bank, which
yes,
I've heard more about it. I just don't know why they're going to do it unless that's going to be the actual seat of their god, Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call it. So, like, I think you've said it before that eventually they're not going to need the Jesuits.
No, I don't think so. They, plan to get rid of all religions. That's what communism's supposed to do. All this coexist stuff is just pursuant to building their one world religion, which would be basically worshiping yourself.
Well, you look at the 3 annexed states in the world right now. You got London that controls the IMF. You got DC that controls the militarized police state. And then you got the Vatican,
it's
which
a
is
world
annexed.
state, world police state.
Right, but then the Vatican runs the world religion. And they're all 3 annexed states. So what would be the reason to have the 4th annexed state be in Jerusalem? Except for that.
It's kind of like that shadow government that I talk about. The synagogue of Satan is the shadow government, as far as I'm concerned. That's what my research has told me. And that's different. They're different from deep state. Deep state is the boogeyman they created. That is basically an excuse to hide the shadow government. It's a vehicle to hide what the real control center is. Get rid of some of the bad actors and blame it on them. In this case, it's the Democrats are the bad guys these days.
But don't you think they kind of had a coming out party when they flipped the stars and they took down 9/11? And took down the World Trade Centers on 9/11?
Yes.
That was like their coming out party. Hey, look at us, and you're going to follow us all the way down to hell.
Yep. A lot of things that people don't realize are not a lot of things. The thing that people don't realize is they flipped the stars on the Republican logo back in 2001. They're now upside down pentagram, or the pentagram star.
Right.
And
I mean, think about the mantra that came out of 9/11. United we stand. And in 20 years, we are the most divided we've ever been. I mean, think about it.
Yeah, as Mike brought up, we did a couple programs last couple months or a month ago on he was proving that the United States has caused the racial divide over the years through
Throughout the whole world?
What? Excuse me?
Throughout the whole world, or just here in the United States?
Just the United States. Yeah, the way they've orchestrated things, they've caused the problems, which I can see.
Absolutely.
That they engineered slavery, like he mentioned. There was no mention of slavery in the Articles of Confederation, but yet when they put the Constitution in place, it's all wholly predicated on slavery. And one of the most ludicrous things they had done is, I don't understand it, but they counted the slaves for the South as being represented or having representation in Congress, which they were property. How could they be represented? It's the whole thing was a mess since day one. Articles of Confederation were okay, but when they put the Constitution in place, it had a lot of holes in it. And looks like our break didn't play. I think I asked them to run a program last week, a rerun, and they didn't reset it. So I don't know if you guys are listening or Ro is listening, but need the brakes put back on. I don't know if Pat Rabbit can handle that, but yeah, we probably won't have a break at the top of the hour either.
All right.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
So yeah, back to this paper I wrote, The Establishment, and I talked about the insurgency and rebellion, and it's created by the 14th Amendment. And of course, it's a quiet war. They don't want to discuss that. No one knows about it. But back to these people in Oregon or whatever's going on throughout the United States. Minnesota was also a problem. I guess they asked Trump to give federal money to, build up what these so-called protesters destroyed in funding, and Trump said no. You guys let it happen. You guys pay for it, was his attitude. But out in Oregon, it's a little different deal because they're on federal property, and that's when they sent Homeland Security in. And there's a law on the books that say, I've said for a long time that the federal government technically can do anything it wants with its citizens, but to perpetrate this fraud called the 14th Amendment and the overlays that it creates. The U.S. citizens are, controlled under, for example, Title 18. There's a plethora of laws that are criminal-based laws that apply to U.S. citizens, and it's all pursuant to 14th Amendment status. And of course, those could happen in the states, again, by these citizens. So technically, the federal government can go into the states and do anything they want, but to play this game or this facade with the 14th Amendment, they pretend they're under the original system and play like, we only have control over the buildings that we have and things of that nature, like the post office or a federal building, and we can't touch anything in the states, which they can. But like I said, it's a game. And of course, the lawyers know how to play it. But yeah, they could go in and take these people out if they wanted to. Destroying property. I know there's laws on the books against destruction of federal property or even public property for the states, and they're not doing anything about it. Even the states could do it, but they're not, because this is planned. They want this to happen. It's all planned, chaos for an end. They have to justify the means to control the end they want, and they're creating these skirmishes and whatever's going on, so they can either install a new system or, for sure, put a new monetary system in, or financial system, is my guess.
Well, and I've been saying all along, they have to drain the wealth out of the old system so there's nothing left standing before they can turn on a new system.
Yes.
Because how could you, if people still had wealth on the old system, they brought in the new, how would that coincide with one another? It can't. And that's what people don't realize is it doesn't matter how much money you got, everybody's going to have it stolen from them.
That's what I believe.
Well, point to that fact is President Clinton, or ex-President Clinton, in 0809, and people can fact check this if they would like to, that he proposed to President Obama to incite or enact Section 4 of the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling. So what that means...
Yeah, you saw that. You told me that a while back.
Oh, yeah, I've looked it up again. It's still out there. Anybody wants to fact check that and look that up, it's out there. I mean, what it was essentially going to do was they were going to come in and steal everyone's 401k pension and savings plan.
Right.
They were going to do, because it's all a vehicle of the 14th Amendment financial system that they have in place.
See, that's why I'm saying I don't think they're going to do away with the debt. When the Articles of Confederation transferred over to the Constitution, that's one thing that they made sure stayed in place, that the states, so-called, would honor the debts they incurred under the Revolutionary War. They weren't going to let that go. The bankers that were owed the money, they weren't going to let that go. I can't see anything being forgiven this time either, when they put another new system in. They're going to drain everyone, like you're saying, but there's going to be things that happen that people are just totally enslaved. The people think they own property now, but they don't. It's a legal title instead of a lawful title, or a allodial title for their land and such. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's all contracted through the mortgage companies and the banking system, but it's all tied up into so the state owns it. They can take it at will anytime they want. So the people really don't own anything. They can take anything they want at any time. And that's ownership of property in the United States is an illusion.
And that goes
because of the debt the United States has.
And that goes for your children too.
Yeah, they're tied up. They're property.
Right. Just we had a judge tell me you are not chattel.
He said you're not?
Yeah, he said. You remember he wrote that in the said that in the transcripts?
Yes.
You're not chattel.
Well, they can't say that.
Well, it's just funny.
The legal fiction is that people are because the 13th Amendment protects it, but that's how they have to keep this game going under the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
And it's a legal fiction that you're chattel, but they can't say it. It's a game, and people don't see it because they don't understand how it works.
Oh, I see it now. I see it better than I've ever seen it, LB.
Yeah.
And like I've always said, I really believe that the 14th Amendment is a living document.
Yeah, that's what they want. The 14th Amendment does make it a living document.
Right. It's everywhere. All throughout society, anywhere you look, it is right there in your face, and people don't understand how it's written, and they use slick tongue language to confuse the masses.
Yes. Well, see what the 14th Amendment did also is create all these agencies. These agencies did not exist under the original Constitution. Agencies are part and parcel of American Marxism. And the municipal law that's created under, it's under, the 14th Amendment, Section 1, actually, where Section 1 of the 14th Amendment technically turns the states of the United States, the Union, into counties, so to speak, of the United States. They're political subdivisions of the United States system under the 14th Amendment now, instead of being individual bodies politic prior to the 14th Amendment.
And that coincides with the privileges and immunities clause that's in the second sentence of Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, correct?
Correct. It sets up a different system of law.
Because each person now has privileges and immunities, no longer rights and freedoms. Rights and freedoms were embodied to the de jure republics, where they're not any longer. It's the 14th Amendment under the facade of law, which is now a total legal fiction. They created the privileges and immunities clause, so everybody takes privileges and immunities, which gives the government jurisdiction over anybody that takes them, or state for that matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me look something up here. It's Title 42, which is civil rights. This is from the Reconstruction Acts that were enacted, but it's very telling what they say. Title 42, which is all civil rights, the Social Security Act appears under Title 42 also. And it's all pursuant to so-called civil rights. And, people look at civil rights as being a good thing, but it's really not. Because it's not natural. They're not natural rights. And they're not constitutionally, they call it constitutionally protected rights, which incorporates natural rights, which is, it has there's just a plethora of different things that accommodate under the original system, which still apply in cases. But that couple in Missouri, for example, you saw the people that defended their property. They were being prosecuted by a local prosecutor.
I haven't seen that.
For defending their property.
Oh, no, I did see that, yes.
Yeah, supposedly, yeah, they talked about the castle doctrine, which is you have the right to defend your property. That's a natural right. And it is the closest thing to individuals being a sovereign, and which I don't agree with, as you know. People are not sovereign when they become part of a nation. The closest sovereignty they have is over their family under non-14th Amendment law. And of course, like I just said, some of these doctrines still apply, but because the system's such a mess, and that's why, this stupid, whoever it was, prosecutor, decided to prosecute these people, because prosecutors are evil to begin with, because they just have to criminalize everything. They don't see the real law. They see 14th Amendment aspects, and everyone's guilty until proven innocent. That's their attitude. And that's why I do not like prosecutors. But anyway, supposedly the governor said he would dismiss the charges against him or pardon them if it got that far, which is, he should. I mean, those people didn't do anything wrong. But the so-called municipal laws that they have set up basically override the original privileges and immunities that you're talking about with the 14th Amendment privilege and immunities. And I do look at this whole mess as a display of power on trying to, hide that the 14th Amendment exists. And that's why the federal government's not getting involved. They don't want to show their cover, so to speak. So that's why they're playing these games. So it appears that the 14th Amendment doesn't exist and the states are still sovereign. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So that's why they're doing this to a point, to show people that the states are still sovereign. But like I said before, they can come in and do anything to U.S. citizens at any time, but they're not doing that for multiple reasons. One being, they're trying to hide the fact that the states are technically political subdivisions of the United States at this time.
But when you brought up civil rights a little bit ago.
Yeah, I got to read that. Yeah, go ahead though.
Don't you think it's kind of fishy and funny in the same breath that the spokesman for the civil rights, for basically present day civil rights, was Martin Luther King Jr., which he was a known Jesuit? Doesn't that surprise you or anybody else out there? Because like you know, they take certain specific oaths where they're more Jesuit than they are of your race.
Yes.
So I mean, if he was truly a godly person, wouldn't he be pushing natural law and common law? Because I really believe the civil rights and civil law is completely Luciferian, where it erodes and chips away at all the godly virtues under natural law, common law.
Of course it does. If you watch movies such as The Propaganda, it's supposedly based on a real book, but the movie by Steven Spielberg that talked about the 13th Amendment called Lincoln. And of course, they didn't talk about the 14th Amendment. It was all about the 13th Amendment and the emancipation of the slaves. And this is what this Title 42, Section 1981 has to deal with. Equal rights under the law. But one of the arguments that came up in there, and I'm sure I've seen it in the transcripts of what they argued, and during that period of time, as they did in the movie, if we were to trust the movie transcript. But one of the arguments was, aren't black people men too, and aren't they protected under the Declaration of Independence? All men are created equal, which I agree with. I think slavery itself is unnatural and really shouldn't have existed. But if we go back, I think that was all planned too, to be a Hegelian dialectic, so they could use it. So they actually put it in place so they could come in and institute what they did. And like I said, Mike made a good case that under the Constitution, they included it in there to create problems. And I can see it. I've seen things like in the 14th Amendment, they inserted the word male in Section 2 of the 14th Amendment to bring up the argument of women in politics at a later date. So, they put these little tools in there to cause problems. And they've done it with the word white. It appeared in acts of Congress. The South gets blamed for being racist and the Confederate flag and all this crap. But, if you go back to pre-Civil War acts of Congress for naturalization, you had to be white to be a U.S. or an American. I'm not going to use U.S. citizen because that's legal language technically under the 14th Amendment. So, yeah, to be an American, you had to be white. And the southern states didn't do that. The Congress did it. So the northern states were just as guilty as the southern states. So back to what Mike was saying, that they've created these problems. So it would create division, and so the Supreme Court could make that a living document under the 14th Amendment. And of course, it was going on before that, of course. Anyway, let me read Section 1981 under Title 42. It says, all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property, as is enjoyed by white person or white citizens. And they go on to say, and shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, exactions of every kind, and to no other.
Well, sounds like the government was racist.
Yeah, it sounds like it was racist. And also, listen to the great deal these guys got. They got to be punished, have penalties, taxes, licenses. They took their freedom away. Just to have access to the courts, basically. Does that, are you seeing that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, LB.
In the Dred Scott case was one of the cases they set up. It was a setup case. Because if you talk to any law scholars, or not law scholars, but people that went to law school, that's one of the main cases they shoved down their throats, is giving, the reason for the Civil War, because this guy named Dred Scott didn't have access to the courts. So that case was a setup to justify the Civil War, basically, and create the slave excuse. And that ties back to why Black Lives Matter today. They're still using the black people for all this chaos that's going on. And I'm not saying the black people are the problem. I'm saying the people that run things, the shadow government, is doing this. And I might say that the so-called deep state are just useful idiots of the shadow government. They use them as guinea pigs or useful idiots to hide all this. And I firmly believe the Democrats are being used as useful idiots right now. Because if you go back and look, the Republican Party is actually the original Communist Party.
What a way to create a duality in the word Republican freedom and Republican Party.
Well, yeah, they use those words so, it scares people away.
Yeah, the Democrats.
Yeah, the Democrats. It would scare the Democrats away. Yeah, I don't want Republican freedom. I don't want anything to do with Republicans. But that's why ignorance is keeping people from being free. But that's planned too,
Oh, absolutely. And all it takes, all it takes is for people to pull their head out of the sand and look around for a minute and start questioning some things. I mean, if you don't question some things, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I could sit here and talk till I'm blue in the face, but if you don't start questioning certain facts that we're projecting out there to people, I can't help you. You can only help yourself.
That's right. But like I was saying, that I started People's Awareness Coalition to work together so they could protect one another, because everyone's not as smart as some people, or the next guy. So everyone's got to work together. But yeah, I've heard some intelligent people through the years say that when they emancipated the blacks, really they ex-slaves. They enslaved everyone, and trying to show that with that section 1981 under Title 42 is how that's kind of done. When you get to be a citizen, you get all these great benefits like taxation, control of your contracts, being told what to do, what you can't do and can't do. It's really a con job. And that's why when I help people correct their status or tell them that really citizenship is not all what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
You're basically becoming a dependent of government when you take that status.
Yep.
A denizen of the city. And that gets back to the municipal law and Marxism. Marxism basically is a control under the municipal law of the 14th Amendment. And it incorporates the city of Washington, D.C. I can't find the statute, but there's a statute that says, if they can't find you to serve you for IRS issues, that it would be, they could serve you anywhere and it would be the same as serving you in Washington, D.C., even though you didn't live there, because you have this federal citizenship. The same goes, they can do, like I said, they can do anything with these so-called protesters or rioters. If they wanted to, they could throw them all in prison for something or other. I mean, but they don't, because they're playing a game right now.
When do we get to throw the government in prison?
Well, just as soon as people want to stop putting up with this game. But right now, they're the enemy. Section 2 of the 14th Amendment says they're criminals for voting. Okay. But who's in power? The people that know this. And I tried to explain it to people, but they ignore it. And if you see today, they're emphasizing more on voting more than ever now. And like I said in my book, is long as Americans are enjoying communism, they're going to be in perpetual bondage. And I really don't see that changing. They could stop it, but they choose not to.
Yeah.
No, you've talked with them personally. Of course, I've talked to people over the last 25 years about this, because I discovered this 25 years ago before I wrote my book. But I brought it out, and it took them about 10 years to bury my work. It happened, with the 2008 crash is when they really commandeered the movement and started getting people out of looking at law issues and get them into politics. And of course, Obama was a bomb, that they created that problem with. That was genius what they did with him, putting him in.
So let me ask you then, why wouldn't they have, and Obama didn't take the bait that Bill Clinton proposed out there with the 14th Amendment? It just wasn't ready yet to crash the system? Because I think it's a
no, he did. He had more debt under his office than any other president before him. It was horrible. That.
But I guess my point is, why wouldn't he have went ahead and utilized the Section 4 of the 14th Amendment at that time?
He did, I believe, because you look at his debt, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, but they didn't go ahead and take the pensions and the 401ks and the savings and all the other.
As far as crashing the system itself, he probably wasn't ready to do that yet, or they weren't ready to do that. But yeah, they spent a lot of money. Foreign money, they spent tons of it.
I guess that's my point. It's like, if people don't realize that the 2008, 2009, it could have went that route, but they're just holding back that, because I think it's a one and done. They only get one chance to use that Section 4 of the 14th Amendment to create the chaos that they want to and take everybody's everything. They get one chance at it. I don't think they can do it twice. I think people will be just too fed up and too whatever you want to call it. If everybody got their life's work stolen from them in a matter of minutes, I don't know what would happen in this country, or lack thereof.
Well, they're getting a lot stolen from them right now in the name of a virus.
Yeah, but everybody has a mask on their face, shutting their mouth.
And someone commented that my avatar for Skype looks like I have a mask on. But no, I told him that wasn't planned. Basically, I did come up with this the saying out of the Bible that said, eyes to hear and, excuse me. See, I'm really mixed up today. Eyes to see and ears to hear, statement out of the Bible, meaning that then I say to people that you're not learning anything if your mouth's always moving. So that's basically what I'm trying to explain or represent through that avatar I've got. I got my mouth covered because I do listen to people. I'm not always talking like a lot of people like to say. Like a lot of people do rather, they like to talk a lot and not listen.
When we're talking about this, Fauci, he's pushing the agenda of the masks, shut down, the whole shebang.
Well, you said he's a Jesuit.
That's what I'm getting at.
The mechanic here on the station said he showed me he's a hidden hander, which is part of the secret societies that Marx belonged to, Napoleon, plethora of other people, Stalin. Well, they're all part of the world communist cabal.
Well, the thing is, LB, Trump's last 2 years of education was at Fordham University, Jesuit.
Yes. Yeah.
Fauci, Jesuit. The white Pope and the black Pope, Jesuit. Mike Pence, fast tracking to become a high-ranking Vatican official up until like 04, 05, and then dropped out mysteriously. No one knows why. Catholic, but he says he's an evangelical. So when you look at all the people that are in the highest forms of government right now, they're all tied together. And then you start looking at the other political leaders of the world. Kim Jong-un, he's in the news a lot. Jesuit.
Yeah, he's a hidden hander.
Right, he's a Jesuit.
Yeah.
Why can't people see this?
They're not paying attention.
I'm telling you, the national bird should not be the bald eagle. It should be an ostrich, LB.
I think you're right.
People's head are in the sand, and they would love it to be there. They don't get sunburned. They don't have to hear nothing. They don't even have to wear a mask down there.
Have you heard anything about everyone having to wear a mask everywhere in the next month or so?
Yeah, I've been reading into it. It sounds like it's coming.
Yeah, my friend said something about it, and I go, I haven't heard anyone talk about it yet.
Yeah, it's coming. They're pushing the agenda. They're pushing the agenda. I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to get a Confederate flag mask. Because I'm really against slavery. That's funny.
Yeah, like we said, when the slaves were released, they were put into another slavery, the hidden slavery of the system.
Well, there's so much disinformation about how the slaves were treated in the South. Like the South was painted as the picture of the bad guy.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it was the North who was mistreating the slaves. When the slaves got freed in the South, most of them wanted to stay.
Yeah, I've heard that story quite a bit. Well, they didn't know where to go, just like anything else,
Okay, but they didn't leave. They had their freedom, supposedly, but they still didn't leave. Even if they didn't want to go, nothing changed. They got their food. They got to practice any religion they wanted to. I mean, even when they were slaves, they got to leave on Sunday and go to whatever church they wanted to go practice religion and then come back and go to work. I mean, is it really much different than what we got going on today?
What do you mean for so-called citizens?
Yeah, that's what I'm
on the
saying.
commercial plantation.
Right.
No,
Right.
they get a paycheck is the only difference, but they have to go out and buy everything that supports themselves.
Yeah. That inflation bug's about to hit real hard come August, September. I mean, there's so many topics that we could talk about right now.
Pull one out, talk about it.
Well, like I just said, the inflation bug that's going to happen, and why they're messing with the money and the currency. I heard something just on it was Kroger's website that they were talking about not being able to make change. That if you pay with the 20 and your bill is $11, they're not giving you your change.
I guess you don't shop there then. That's what people should start doing.
Okay. And I agree with that too, but eventually there's going to be a retention on all this. I just don't believe that things are going to replenish themselves. There's not going to be anything to buy. The consumer.
That's true, but the people have to boycott this or put it into it or stop it. They're not willing to do that. They're not, willing to be inconvenienced.
But it's the new abnormal, LB. It's the new abnormal. It's not normal. But people are accepting the abnormal as normal. They're normalizing something that should have never been. And people are just taking the spoon-fed BS. Everything the government gives them. Okay, I'll put a mask on. Okay, I'll stay home. Okay, I'll keep doing what you tell me. Wow. Could you imagine that if we needed to have a Boston Tea Party tomorrow, no one would show up?
They would, but they would be a organized, planned opposition.
Yeah, Soros funds it. Jeez. I'm serious. How could people let this happen?
By letting government take care of them. They say, well, America will never be socialist. It is. The nature of municipal law is socialist itself.
Okay.
It's private. Private law applies to certain persons.
But you are also referencing municipal law as equity law as well, correct?
Oh, of course it is.
Okay, I just wanted to show that aspect of it because a lot of people don't understand that.
The judges can issue equity too. And that's one thing the 14th Amendment did. It converted the court systems into equity systems. On their face, they're equity systems instead of grounded in the common law. They're supposed to. Attorney at law is supposed to follow, the common law, but they don't. They default to the system first, which is predicated on private law statutes and which apply to the agencies. They're not dealing with strict common law principles.
Well, that would be because the judges are priests.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're the priest of this, religion called government.
Correct.
That's why I say, I've been saying that for years. I go, government's a religion, and that's why the priest black robes and the judge black robes are all based on Geneva, the Geneva Bible and what Calvin set up for the Vatican back in the 1500s. And that's worldwide now, so the basic, the whole system under world communism is basically a religion. It doesn't matter what religion you're practicing. If you're part of the government, governmental systems under the not the 14th Amendment necessarily, but under world communism, that's your religion. All these other religions were technically done away with long ago.
Yeah, we need the 14th Amendment here in Europe.
Yeah, you said that. You said you found that. I did see that too a few years back. I wish I would have kept the article.
Oh yeah, it was years back that I read it too.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Even the Koch brothers, even well, the one died now, but yeah, they were even promoting, oh, the world needs 14th Amendment, just like we have here. And it basically just creates a system of law that controls everyone under the nicety of equity law.
Wow.
And like I said last hour, that I didn't realize until about 10 years ago that I didn't have a people. And that's why I wrote the paper, Your Marxism. People are under Marxist systems, and they don't even realize it. And like, I said, the government's religion. The government's their religion.
If every U.S. citizen is a slave, and they would just unite together as slaves, it's over. It is over.
Yeah, but they're not. They're letting these planned opposition people raise chaos, and that's what's going on. That's why they're doing this. It's a Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, and that's why so many people are going from the Democrat or the liberal side to the so-called conservative side now. They've created these asinine liberals, and they're creating these problems so they look like nuts to the average person, so they can build their totalitarian conservative party, which is really a communist party.
I think, like I've said all along, I think both parties are going to burn, and one party will rise to the occasion as a totalitarian aspect.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years, but my point is the Republicans are it. They might change the name of it or whatever. But you see my point is everyone's leaving the Democrats. But there's a lot of people doing that right now. So the plan is working.
So over the course of the past 50 years, how many Republicans do you think were actually inserted into the Democrats to create distension within their ranks?
Oh, I'm sure they've done that. They have the rhinos. Republican in name only, I think that stands for rhino.
I've never heard.
They're Democrat. They're Democrats actually, but they're Marxists. They have Marxist ideals, but they're in the Republican Party. But it's all the same party. I think you said it a little while ago. Marx said, and you said it last hour, that there won't be peace until everyone accepts socialism, right?
Right.
So the Democrats are basically being sold as socialist, and the Republicans are capitalist, right? Would you say that's true?
I can see that.
Yeah, well, they're two sides of the same coin. The coin is communism. And you need one to build the other. So, according to Marx, you need socialism to build communism, which communism is basically just game to make the rich richer, which is capitalistic.
Well, how do we tear it down?
Well, you got to stop participating. People have to stop, they're going to be inconvenienced, Convenience is how they sucked everyone in. And of course, technology's done it worse.
If I had $1 for every time that I've been called, "Oh, you're not American. Leave this place." Guess what, buddy? I'm more American than you are.
You're an Ohioan.
Well, yeah, you are correct.
No, I know. I'm just saying that people use the term America as a noun, and it's really just an adjective for people like us.
Right. It describes a place, and it's a place of union. It's a union of nations. I believe that was Webster's 1862. It's in there.
1862 or 1828?
I thought it was 1862.
Hmm.
I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, the first dictionary that Webster came up with was 1828. I use that quite a bit for reference. There was no such thing as capitalism defined until I think 1817, somewhere in there, 1812 maybe. So that was a term that was developed and then taken out of context quite a bit. And basically, Noah defined a capitalist as someone that's got large sums of money that invest in business. You don't need to be a capitalist to start a business. That's free enterprise, and people confuse the terms.
Right. Well, see, I look at a passage in the Bible that says the meek shall inherit the earth.
Yes.
What defines the meek, or what defines the mighty? I believe in the way that man has predicated this world right now. It's all about a financial standing and your demographic of how you stand financially. That creates you being a powerful man in this world that we live in today.
Yeah, that's what America is about, and that's why it's evil,
So when I
because
look
that's
at
not the way people should be. And it gets back to what I said about I don't have a people because they're all materialistic and create this religion of government for themselves.
well, I guess what I'm getting at is, I guess the the Bible, God saw this all happening.
Sure.
So when he says the meek shall inherit the earth, that would only be contingent upon the king returning to remove the mighty, which are the communistic, capitalistic, socialistic oligarchs that are
Right.
enslaving the whole world. So biblically, to me, the war has already started.
It's been going on for thousands of years.
Right, but right now we're getting to the point where the spiritual and the physical are about to meet.
Yes, there's a lot of people waking up, but unfortunately, no one's working together, and there's people out there that work for the Vatican that claim to know what they're talking about and call themselves judges and whatever, but they're just operatives, distracting people with nonsense and whatever else. Of course, they've stolen my work and distorted it. And the one thing that I haven't seen people use, they have to use nationality a bit because it's in the code and you can't deny it. But one thing that people really don't talk about that relates back to the Communist Manifesto is Marx said they're out to destroy countries and nationalities. The communists are, and that basically translates to a borderless world that a lot of people have heard if they study it all. But what I've determined is the borderless world is going to be basically overlays of different countries with the legal systems, but borderless means open trade for the capitalist. And the people that are the capitalists are the people with a lot of money. So they're not going to be paying tariff taxes eventually in the future. And that's what people have to be concerned with. Because if these people, they're in foreign trade, aren't paying taxes on, what they're importing and exporting, that means you're paying for it personally. And that's part of communism. Why they imposed the income tax, because the more money that these capitalists make, the less taxes they pay per Marxist ruling class, which would be Congress in this case, in our case. So they're not paying the taxes, but the income tax is being paid by the labor. And this just gets worse and worse. And part of the original Constitution is they took the property taxes away, they imposed property taxes on people because they took away the trade tariffs between the states. And the New World Order is just another advanced model of that. So that's what the plan is. And people have to be aware of this, that they're going to be, used as slaves to pay these operating expenses of the capitalists. That's what I fear is coming. And I even heard Trump say that. Not in those words. Of course, they're not ever going to say that. But he did promise that there will eventually be no tariff taxes.
When we talk about this, I still come back to that the meek shall inherit the.
Yes.
Well,
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen until people wake up.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, sorry.
True
Go ahead.
True Israel, the faction of the Israelites, it cannot come from the world system. Anybody who's stuck in the world system is not an Israelite. You have to remove the world from you. You can't be part of it. You're of it, but you can't be part of it.
There's a clause or a Bible verse that says, be in the world and not of it.
Right.
Yeah, I use that one quite a bit.
But I guess
people love being of it, though. That gets back to the government is people's religion.
But if you're bowing down to the world system, that's essentially mean that you're in allegiance with Lucifer and the Luciferian.
Or Satan.
So how can you say that the Israelites could come from anything else but the world system? Or, you know what I'm trying to say? Not part of the world system.
Though that was the original covenant that they were a part of that. Of course, the New Testament set up something different. But that's what Christ talked about, not being of the world. And that's what I saw in the Bible. It saved me from man, basically. Man's systems. That's what Christ talked about.
You have no idea.
Preached.
People throw that in my face where they're like, oh, Jesus paid taxes. I'm like, no, there's no possible way he could have ever paid a tax because he would have tied him. That means he would have bowed down to the world system, which is Lucifer and his agenda.
Yes, I don't see why they could say that. The one story in the Bible where he was asked about the coin. This is Caesar's, he says it's got Caesar's face on it. You pay the taxes if you have a contract with him is basically what he was saying. He didn't say he did it.
No, I can't find anything. Everybody just wants to always assume that.
They've been trained to say that, just like Black Lives Matter and whatever else they've been trained to say, like a bunch of parrots they are. Here's Title 12 of U.S. Code, Section 411, talking about taxes and debt in regard to what we just talked about in that Bible verse with Christ. Federal Reserve notes. Notes itself means debt. Something you owe someone money. Federal Reserve notes to be issued at the discretion of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for the purpose of making advances to the Federal Reserve banks through the Federal Reserve agencies here and after set forth and for no other purposes are authorized. The said note shall be obligations of the United States and shall be receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks and for all taxes, customs, and other public dues. They shall be redeemable in lawful money on demand at the Treasury Department of the United States in the city of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve Bank. The key phrase is redeemed for lawful money.
Where's
They're saying right there that the Federal Reserve notes are not lawful.
Right. Where's it at? Show me this lawful money.
It's gold or silver, technically. But that's all become a mess in the last 50 years, especially since they took us off the gold standard. Yeah. They haven't adjusted this, but the point is the Federal Reserve notes and the debt still is that's why people are paying income tax, because of the debt of the United States. And this free Trump bucks that everyone got, they're going to be paying for that. Their children and grandchildren are going to be paying for that for years to come.
I agree.
And I don't think they're going to forgive it. I don't see that happening.
Well, if they do, there's something far more sinister in the works.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You know, if they do, it's going to be a falsity.
Right.
And people are already, you know, you and I talked about the term resident. A resident's the identity of a thing.
Yep.
Res in law means thing. RES. You can look that up in any law dictionary. And identity is a thing, the identity of the thing. So people under the 14th Amendment are considered property. And again, it gets back to, yeah, the judge isn't going to admit you're not chattel, but you are through their systems, legal definitions and systems. And it all ties back to, you know, what I just read here out of the unlawful money, and it's the debt.
If you just prove that with what you just said about res being a thing and the identity of the thing, if you're able to prove that, is that not the judge in bad faith by him not adhering to that?
It depends, though. That's what my process of correcting your nationality is all about, so you're not subject to all this. And you don't have that standing if you don't fight it, you know, or correct it. You can fight about it, but because the whole thing's a joke to begin with, or a fraud. But you're going to have trouble overcoming it if you don't have proper standing.
So really it comes down to all the lower district level judges are just incompetent fools.
Probably. There's a lot of that goes on. I've worked with a few municipal type judges, and they really don't know the law to the extent that they should. But that's all planned.
Right. And I get that.
Yeah.
I do get that. That's the Freemasonry.
Yeah, useful idiots.
Yep.
Just like the Jesuits are useful idiots. All these are, you know, just operations of the synagogue of Satan. You know, the shadow government. They have to have their useful idiots to make all this work. So tools, as I called them in deprogramming, PAC deprogramming 20 years ago when I wrote that script. That's another thing these SOBs have stolen from me. Not that I didn't use the Matrix script to do PAC deprogramming 20 years ago, but I took it and turned it around, because the Matrix basically is a trick. It was kind of talking about the libertarian philosophy, and but the telling part of the Matrix movie was Neo at the end of the movie saying that there's no rules, no borders or boundaries, which gets back to the communist thing we just talked about no borders of the New World Order. And no rules, but that would be for the capitalists he was talking about, not individuals. The individuals are going to have the rules applied against them, but I turned it around into getting people to not, you know, be under the control of what he was also talking about is the doing away with religions also in that statement, that quote at the end of the movie. So they were talking about doing away with religions, which communism does, and everyone being their own me god. That's kind of what he was getting at. But I turned it around back to people getting rid of the system as it exists, but not going into the New World Order system, but having God as your you know, the creator as your power. That's where your freedom comes from. And they were turning it into the me God system in the Matrix. So I turned it around, but my point is, when you get red pilled today, you're becoming a Republican or a conservative, like I mentioned. That's the original Communist Party. So, you know, basically it's doing exactly what the Matrix said, but I corrected that is what I'm saying. And they've stolen the concept from People's Awareness Coalition and commandeered it for the current status quo political system. So red pill today to them is being part of this satanic system, which the original Matrix technically did. Am I making sense at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
You know, something I take away from that I'm going to expound upon is Lucifer, Satan, has always he's always been jealous and always been envious of God, and he wants to be a god.
Right.
So essentially, a world without borders, he's trying to create a new Eden.
Yes.
So with that new Eden, he's trying to take the place as king of this world. And he's doing it through all the governments.
Yes.
And people don't understand that the governments have necessitated the necessity of the people to live and survive.
That's what communism is. It's control of the economy. The original or proper economy comes from your family, right?
Yes.
That's where the original economy comes from. But in the New World Order or this communist system, the government controls the economy, or this entity called the Synagogue of Satan. And I've got a video where the president of Israel actually said that. He said there's no more national economies, which would be each state economy in the original system, or under the 14th Amendment communist system. It's stair-stepped again. It takes a while to get the whole program in place, but they're saying that there's going to be no more national economies. It's going to be global. So they're going to control all the economies. So what they've done is they've stolen each individual family's ability to make money, and now the economy, you're going to be working for the Synagogue of Satan. You're not going to be working for your family anymore. And that's basically communism in a nutshell. These guys are going to be making all the profits, all your labor's included into one nutshell, and they're going to control it all. You have no control over anything anymore. And like you said, they're probably going to make it look all great, warm and fuzzy, but everyone's going to be a perpetual bond slave to this system. They don't have the ability to not enjoy their lives without being subject to the system somehow. And they've already done that. So through property taxation and income taxation, and it's just going to get worse. This carbon tax is basically a tax on your body. And they've already done that through the labors, but it's going to get, it's going to be deeper involved now. So
Yeah.
People better wake up. That's all I got to say. I really don't see it getting better. These people haven't done anything better for anyone over the past 2,000, 3,000 years. You hear about human trafficking and whatever else goes on behind the scenes. That's not going to improve.
Yeah. I think it's going to get worse. Way worse.
I know it is. This whole virus thing is just a training session to get people to kowtow to what these people do and say. It's going to be the new normal.
Yeah, we consumed ourselves to death.
Yeah, that's what woke me up years ago. I wasn't in the corporate world, but I did have an ex that worked at one of the Citibank it was. I went in there one day and, saw the word human resources on one of the doors, and I go, what the hell is that? When I went to work with my father when I was in the 60s, early 70s, it was personnel department. I remember that from when I was a kid. So all of a sudden it's human resources, and I go, that's a slave. Your property. How come no one's fighting this or questioning it? Couldn't believe it.
Because we got to go back to what we said in the last hour. Let me control the textbooks and I will control the state.
Right.
Yeah. People are just, there's so many adjectives and pronouns I want to use right now, what people are, but I can't. Because I got to give people benefit of the doubt that they will awaken. And I hope, and that is my hope, that they will awaken from their slumber. And to me, it's the wanton slumber that people are just totally oblivious because of. So
You've talked to a lot of people. What do you see out there, and are they waking up, do you think, since this virus hit? Is
some
this,
are,
I call it shit show 2020, but
but I look at everybody with a God blessed mask on their face going, there's another one that's never going to get it. There's another one. So it's kind of like they've already just wrote themselves out, in my opinion.
well, I've been saying for years, of course, I got rid of the system about a little over 20 years ago, but I said back, then I go, anyone that's not willing to get rid of their social security number and not use it, the one they were assigned, of course, it's the government's number. But I go, they're going to do whatever they need to do. They're not going to change. The majority of the people, there might be some here and there that were uneducated back then that would become educated now, but might do it. But for the most part, people are dependents of the system, and they wouldn't be willing to change. So I guess the mask is the next example of people that aren't going to do anything, or
Right.
just sheep that do what they're told.
Well, the one pushing that agenda is Fauci or Fossey or whatever, however the heck.
Fauci.
But when you look up his name, and I find this to be very interesting, in Italian, it means sickle, as in the sickle of the Grim Reaper or sickle of communism.
Yeah.
And then when you look up his name in Hebrew, it's mouth of a carnivore or jaws of a carnivore. So what is his true agenda, knowing that he's a Jesuit? What is their agenda here? And that's where people have to open up their eyes and question. I can't question it for you. All I can do is just kind of like throw somewhat of a lifeline out there for anybody that wants to see the truth. And the truth is in the 14th Amendment. And that's how you really get to see the world in a true like lens of the spectrum of what it is and what's going on. Now you can see what's good, and now you can see what's evil, because it's all predicated on that 14th Amendment. When you have a church that takes a 501(c) hashtag and becomes a nonprofit organization, that is a 14th Amendment vehicle. Therefore, how is God going to stand in that church with the people if they're all part of a 501(c)? How? How will God stand with those people? I keep asking myself that, and I can't get an answer. To me, the only answer is he doesn't.
That is what's natural and what man controls.
Sorry about that, LB.
Well, that's fine. I'm looking for the statutory definition of corporations being deemed citizens. Corporations aren't citizens. They can't vote. But that's the way the system under the 14th Amendment operates.
Then it just goes right in kind of lockstep with the whole idea of everybody became a corporate fiction where you only exist on paper. You don't actually exist at all in the government's eyes.
Here it is. It's under Judiciary Title 28, 1332. Diversity of citizenship. For the purposes of this section, in section 1441 of this title, a corporation shall be deemed to be a citizen of any state by which it has been incorporated and the state where it has its principal place of business. So that's just perversion of law because, well, like I said, I read this book by Rudolf Sohm. He was a German law professor. He put a book together in the late 1800s, and he made the reference that the Roman Empire did the same thing that they did with the 14th Amendment. He didn't make that parallel, but he said the Roman Empire went from a republic to an empire, and they incorporated corporations to have the same powers as people. And that's what they did with the 14th Amendment. It's a total perversion of law. And of course, the Roman Empire failed, shortly after they killed Christ. Took about another 150 years, but I really think that it's my belief that Christ was the one that exposed that Rome was being controlled by the synagogue of Satan through the Sadducees, and it took them 35 more years to destroy the temple, but the same things happened here in the United States. It's the same thing, different time.
So if you painted a timeline, at what point do you believe that the Sadducees controlled Rome?
I think they controlled all the law of Rome, and it filtered through years after. If you look at the law of Justinian, the Justinian system, I think it was put in place in the year 500, which was, the Roman Empire dwindling at that time. But they referred to people as animals. That same Jesuit principle carries through today. If you go into, U.S. code, you'll find that they refer to people as animals. And if you go into Talmudic law, they divided. They call us Goyim, non-Jews. They refer to us as animals. So this whole system was controlled by them, I believe, even afterwards. I believe the Sadducees were supposedly disappeared after they destroyed the temple, but I think they went underground and had something to do with creating the church, as it's called.
Sadducees that you speak of, they were heavily influenced by Solomon, were they not?
I believe so. The only difference between the Sadducees and the Pharisees is they didn't believe that there was afterlife, I believe. But the principles of controlling the law and stuff and what they believed were similar to the Pharisees. I might be wrong on that, but the thing is, they were paganistic and they didn't believe in what Christ taught, and it goes back to the whole synagogue of Satan principle, which of course is a later terminology that came about, but it's the same system, just like I said before that the Zionists weren't around until the late 1800s. The same faction was there. It's just that they were not called the synagogue of Satan at that time. But it's the same principle, same faction. Evil, satanic worshipers, which is opposed to the so-called Israelites. which was, 1,500 years before that even. So.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're still talking about the Israelites, they came out of Egypt and they became Baal worshiping right off the bat.
Right. And then Solomon, according to my research, put an end to the Israelites because he violated the Deuteronomy or the covenant. And you could say that. I mean, that's when they broke their covenant which was supposedly with God, that they lost their land soon after that. And interestingly enough, it broke into a north and south situation, and the north and the south both lost their lands at different times by different conquerors. I wrote a paper called "A Case Against Secession," and the United States was founded on Christianity, not the Jesuit-based one or the Vatican-based one, but general principles of the New Testament, according to Jesus, the Christ, as some people refer to him as you and I refer to him as Yeshua. It's supposedly the proper Hebrew name, right?
And yes, and a little bit more in depth of the name is Yahusha HaMashiach, which is the Messiah. Yeah. Right. And see, that's where people get mad at me here, and I guarantee people will get mad about this statement that I'm going to make, is that the word Christ was of the Greek under Christos. They needed an equivalency for the word Messiah, but yet Messiah was used in every language across the entire globe at that time period. So why did they need to make up another name for a term that was already used? See, that's where I have a hard time calling my Savior Christ anymore. It has to be Messiah because Yahusha HaMashiach is his true name. So what was the agenda with the same people that are running government now, lying, no transparency, doing whatever the heck they do? What was their agenda? Because the enemy that I know the enemy as does not do anything in haste. There's always a reason why the enemy does what the enemy does. So that terminology is something that is very, very misunderstood, hidden. Because then when you start really getting into the term Jesus, where the J wasn't even used in the English language until 1524. So for 1,491 years, who and what authority were people being saved under? So that right there tells me that something stinks. And then when we start talking about the Jesuits and the Catholics and how much they control here and how much they control there, it seems like the book that we have to pin everything to that we talk about is the Bible, 1611 King James, supposedly the first. Never used the word Jesus until 1678, and then the term Jesus was used in the 1611 King James Bible. But guess what? I can't get my hands on a real true 1611 King James Bible. So there's a lot of history that people want to just sit there and take the spoon-fed BS that's given to us by the Catholics, by the Jesuits, by the governments, by the Jews. It's crap. All you got to do is just a little bit of homework, and then you start seeing that you're being led by wolves in shepherd's clothing. The true shepherd's in your heart, people. It's not in your mind. Anybody can sit there and subdue your mind. I've seen it happen hundreds and hundreds of times. People are all over subdued by their mindset. The Savior comes to you in your heart. But as I see it, nobody has heart anymore. That's been stolen by the government. You've given that up. It takes heart to remove yourself from Social Security, from federal privileges, from immunities. I mean, I feel bad for the people that had the Boston Tea Party because they thought they were going to do something that would symbolize the end of tyranny. No, we just took it in another form. Go to room number 2. That's tyranny in the second room too. Same hotel, people.
Anyway, back to the nature of the program today about citizen and Marxism in regard to municipal law. When I started to read or found out in Vattel's Law of Nations, he deemed members of a nation citizens. And if you look at a citizen, the history of it, it's basically a denizen or someone that dwells in the city. So that made the Law of Nations, which is one of their rule books for international law that was put together by French Vattel, basically was telling me that they created the nations to be municipal corporations. And of course, the Constitution is built on that concept, and so is the Articles of Confederation. So automatically, you're presumed to be under this municipal law. And the 14th Amendment just created people to be part of the city-state called Washington, D.C. So under the New World Order, which they're pushing for world government, and if you had world passport, world citizen passport, you're going to be subject to all these private laws that this so-called world government puts together, just like Congress has been controlling so-called Americans for the last 150 years through this system of private law.
I mean, you brought up D.C., and I just wanted to expound upon that a little bit, just to correlate the symbolism to D.C.
Mm-hmm.
That you think it's just coincidence that D.C. is District of Columbia, which in the Book of Nimrod, Columbia is referred to as the goddess of war and destruction?
I'm sure Persephone sits on top of the Capitol building.
Right.
She's the goddess of the underworld, yeah.
Also known as the Bride of Satan.
Yeah, all this stuff happened after the Civil War, by the way, or following or leading up to it. The Washington Monument was started being built in the 1850s.
And when you bring up the Washington Monument, remember, everyone out there, the Vatican also has an obelisk in their courtyard facing a dome structure, and London also has an obelisk facing their dome structure. All three annexed states of their mother country.
Yeah. Rulers of Evil by Tupper Saucy explains all this pretty well. That's one book that I was in contact with Tupper before he passed away.
I'd like to read that book.
Yeah, we have it up on the PAC website. It's under pacinlaw.us/rulers.
And just to let everybody else know out there, that was my foundation in all this, was the symbolism that's just thrown in our face. And when you understand that the enemy's motto is best way to keep something hidden is in plain sight, I sat there and I started looking at these Luciferian, satanic, demon-possessed images and symbolism all throughout. And they'll say, oh, they're like gargoyles on the Catholic Church, per se. Why are they there? To scare away entity. But that is the entity that they're trying to scare away with the same entity. You know, you have to take in the symbolism and look to this stuff, and they're making fun of you by putting it out there, and you just keep on doing it. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, LB, doesn't the Italian Parliament not have a middle finger out in their courtyard now?
Yeah, supposedly the other fingers are cut off, and it's flipping people off. Right. That's I think it's the stock exchange.
Is that where it is?
Italy, yeah.
Whatever the case, I'm sure
they called it the Statue of Love, I believe, for whatever. But yeah, it's just all evil, all this stuff. But they're turning our statues down to the Civil War because they're going to create a a new world without any history.
But
It's
yet
going to be a fabricated, just slavery, and people won't see it. They won't see it. They don't see what slavery they have now.
But in Oklahoma, I don't remember the city, and in Detroit, Michigan, where there's 2 statues of Lucifer.
Yeah.
Now,
wasn't that Baphomet?
Yeah, the Baphomet, whatever you want to call Lucifer, Baphomet. Yeah, I mean, I kind of associate them as the same.
Yep.
And it's also funny that both statues depict Lucifer, the Baphomet, with male and female body parts.
Yes. Well, that's the Jewish religion.
You mean that's the Talmud religion?
Yeah, the Talmudic, or Judaism.
Right.
They don't follow the Talmud. That's just all nonsense. They say they do.
Wow.
They're not Israelites.
Well, the Talmud isn't Israelite.
No, I know.
Okay.
I'm just saying that some of these Jews say they follow the Talmud, but they
the
don't.
more and more I look at the Talmud, it really aligns with Moloch and the virtues of Moloch. Which the funny thing is about that, there's a book that explains demonology, and the funny thing is, it was written by King James. It was the only other book published, if I'm not mistaken, by King James, which was a book on demonology in 1597.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
All I know is all civil law goes back to Switzerland and John Calvin, and the Geneva robes are present in the judgeships and the priesthoods. So it's all tied together. Government's a religion, and people need to start taking their countries back, which in the United States is each state in the Union. I was going to say that these false teachers out there don't talk about that because they are hell-bent on keeping the satanic system together. E pluribus unum, as they call it. And like I said, that piece I put together based on the Israelites, a case against secession, the state should stay together just to have power if there is to be a good transition, because that's where this system was built on the Christian, or not so-called Christian faith, but Yeshua, and not the Vatican. That's why people came over here, to get away from that system in the first place. So that's the nexus, is what I'm trying to get at. Well, we're out of time, Nathan. Thanks for joining me.
You're very welcome, LB.
It's kind of a somber day for me, but thanks for listening. Hope you learned something. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.